Hello viewers, welcome to another session with the Village Boy Academy. Today we'll be talking about what do you take into consideration when you want to establish a business. People jump into establish a business because of unforeseen circumstances like maybe sudden retirement, loss of job, and similar things that could make a person will say, okay, let me take the plunge and start a business. But then you have to sit down and consider some factors, some issues that you have to trash before you say, okay, I want to do this business, and this is the kind of business I want to do. So number one thing, we have to look at this registration. What kind of business do you want to register? Yes, you must register your business, no matter the type of business you are running. And we have three broad categories of the business you want to run. You want to run your business as a sole trader, whereby you are the owner, you are the manager, you do everything all by yourself. Being a sole trader doesn't mean also that you cannot employ hands. If your business expands, you can always do that. But it's like you are responsible for major thing. You are the sole financier and all that thing. So you are the owner, the single owner of the business. Or do you want to run as a partnership, in which case you want to join with people of like minds, or somebody who share the same interest with you, or and you combine together to be a partner, to be partners in the business. And you have to have some agreement, what is called partnership or agreement. And then you want to run, you want to register as a limited liability company, or what we call, you want to incorporate your business, whereby the owners and the business is almost kind of separate. In all business, in the eyes of law, in the eyes of accounting, business and owners are actually very separate. We will take time in turns to discuss this type of business registration. So you have to decide what you want to do. All of them have their own advantages and then their disadvantages. So you have to decide that first. Then the next thing you have to decide is the kind of business you want to do. What is the market demand for that business? It could be service, it could be product. Is the business, is there in demand, within your environment? Is there demand outside your environment? Yes, outside the environment has become relevant these days because of online businesses, because of e-commerce. You can do business outside where you reside. So geographical factor is no longer a strong limitation in doing business, but you still have to do the kind of business you want to do, whether there is a market demand for it, because business is about exchanging of values. You are giving something in return for economic gain, so you have to understand that. They also have to do, what is the competition in this business like? Are there competitors? Are those who are running the business? What do they how are they faring? In some places you can get information about your competitors online. There are some instances you may have to do the legwork, maybe in your neighborhood. Especially if you want to do a business within your neighborhood, you have to make some inquiries. You have to even make some observations, because sometimes when you want to make inquiries from those who are already running the business, you may run into brick walls, or may not be very open to you. So you have to find a way of gathering some level of information. Then you have to also decide what is the capital requirement to start this business. How much minimally do I need to start this kind of business? Then how will I raise that amount of money? Do I have enough saving to kick off the business? Do I have to borrow from friends, from relations, from families? Do I have to go to bank? Going to bank might not be pretty easy at the initial stage because of what they call if you are not bankable, if you don't have a record to show that you have run business of that type, or you are capable of running business, it might be very difficult to raise funds from the banking institution. I know there are also some development of organized institutions in some countries whereby they encourage startup business to access funds. But then you have to also prepare a lot of documents. You have to answer some questions. You have to meet some regulatory requirements to be able to assess that. It's not that everybody that will just come and say, okay, I want to start business, I'm a startup business, so give me money. No, it doesn't work that way. There are some information you have to provide. There are some checklists you have to comply with before you do that. Then, most importantly, do you have experience in that kind of business? Is it a kind of business you have run before? You could have been part of the business maybe as an employee. You could have been part of that business because you volunteer your service to maybe a similar business in the past. Do you have the requisite experience? This is very important, especially for pensioners. I've seen a lot of people who, when they receive their initial pension fund, they want to go into business that they had nothing, no experience about, because somebody say, oh, this business is profitable, oh, so person is running it, the other person is running in it. So, and they just want to dabble into it straight away. And many of them have burned their fingers. You can't go into business that you don't have any experience about. So you want to, you don't want to put your money where you are learning at the same time. Yes, what people do, some can attach themselves as apprentices to existing organization with me, to get kind of a business they want to run, so that they can gain that requisite experience. It's very, very important. And of course, in some professional service, you must also have you be qualified for a kind of registration. For instance, in accounting, you can't just go and say you want to be an auditor. There are some practicing hurdles you have to cross. And unless you meet that requirement, you cannot set up an audit business. Yes, you can even be a chartered accountant, but being a chartered accountant alone does not qualify you to go and set up an audit firm. It is what you must have an experience, at least a minimum number of years to have experience as working an audit firm, doing audit practice. So that's what we call practicing licenses. And there's so many, it's not only limited to accounting, it's so many regulated professions. You have the licensing procedures. So if you can't get that license if you don't have that experience. So that one is almost imposed on members of the particular profession, that you must have this practical experience about this kind of line of business, the kind of line of operations, before we can license you to go and practice on your own, to set up a business on your own. So, but for other businesses that are not regulated, people jump into it without having the experience, and I tell you, it's not always a wise thing to do. It is better to make sure you get the experience. Someone who was telling me, after collecting his box of gratuity, as we call it in some other climb, that somebody told him that bakery is a very good business, that he wants to go and start bakery. I said, have you been a baker before? He said, no, I'm going to employ people to do it for me. And I guess the guy did it, and almost a lot of the money was wiped off because he didn't even know what to do from the beginning. So it is very dangerous to dabble into business that you don't have experience at all. The other factor you have to consider is the regulatory requirement. There are businesses that require specific regulatory obligations to be fulfilled for anybody who wants to start up that business. For instance, if you want to go into food business, almost in every climb, you have to have register with the regulatory authority that administer food and drug related matters. So you have to take sample to them. They have to come and inspect your processing facilities. There are conditions depending on the specific kind of food you want to produce. There are requirements you have to meet. Of course, they do have what we call the checklist. When you apply to them that, okay, you want to register this particular product and all that, or services, they say, okay, these are checklists of what you have to meet up. So you have to, comply with those regulatory requirements. And if you don't do that, even when you have started the business, the moment you are caught up, you may be asked to face the wrath of the law, because you are violating the law. So you must understand this, the business you want to do, what are those regulatory requirements for that particular kind of business. So starting business is not a tea party. You have to do a lot of groundwork. And of course, you have to be concerned about, okay, what is the rate of return? What is the average rate of return? This kind of business. People go to business, set up business to make profit. You have to understand, okay, how is profit made in this kind of business? Is it a business that has a very wide margin? That the difference between your selling price and your cost of sales is very wide. You have a wide margin. Or is it a business with a narrow margin? You can check our previous video. We have discussed all this about margin and markup. How much, at which level do I break even? Of course, also you can check our previous video on how to calculate break-even point. How to calculate break-even point. So those are the things you have to consider, because you don't want to go to business not to make money. You are going to business to make money. You are going to business to make profit. You have to find out through research, through observation, what is the average rate of return, ROI, rate on investment on this kind of business. Because if you don't do that, if you don't have that basic knowledge of what you are going into, you may be pleasantly surprised at what you meet on the ground. Then you have to also consider, okay, how easy to start this business. We will call it easy of entry, easy of exit. What if I burn my fingers and I want to call it quit? Is it a business that can easily resell to an interested party, or it is difficult to resell, or is it a business that it's even difficult to enter? There's a business that if you don't have a minimum amount of money, you cannot enter into it. It's not any business you can just wake up one day as one morning and say, okay, I'm starting up this business. So how is it easy to set up that kind of a business? Of course, I said that there are some businesses, especially those of professional nature, that you cannot just go into unless you're a member of that profession. And if you do that, you'll be regarded as a quack. As a quack, somebody that is not professionally suitable to run that kind of a business. So you have to understand what are the limitations, in starting this kind of business. So are those limitations something you can overcome? Then you have to also understand what are the regulatory requirements. For example, you want to start up a school, a private school. What are the requirements by government or by any regulatory authority in establishing a school? It could be by the local government, it could be by the state government or province, it could be by the federal government. That's okay. Before you can establish this kind of a school, you must have this, you must have this, you must have this. Usually those regulatory authorities, over time, they have a checklist of what you must comply with. And sometimes some of them on their website, they have what we call FAQ, frequently asked questions, whereby they say, okay, you can go and look at those FAQs so that you determine, beforehand that, okay, these are the things you have to comply with before you can start up business. Setting up business is good, it's encouraging. Some will say, okay, start business that you have passion for. Yes, even if you have passion for a business, for a kind of business, if you don't have an experience, I'm afraid sometimes lack of experience may frustrate your passion. But if you have a hand-on experience on that kind of business, and it's a business that you also have passion about, then it becomes synergetic for you to start business, which means you are bringing into the business your experience and your passion. I would not want to believe that passion will be sufficient to start the business that you don't have an experience in. Your passion may not be able to carry you far, but the combination of your experience and your passion will definitely carry you further in running the business. And I also want to say a caveat here. Remember, any business can fail. No matter what you have done, do your due diligence and all that before you start a business. Any business can fail. And there are so many factors where business fail. Because when you have even set up business, there are other things you still have to do. You still have to nurture that business. You still have to monitor what you are doing. You still have to keep good records. You still have to be prudent in how you spend money. You still have to also be mindful or what is going on in your industry. So before you set up business, or you have the intention of setting up business, sit down and look at all these issues that we have discussed in this video. Until we come your way next time, we might likely pick up the issues of sole trading, partnership, and limited liability or incorporated business, and explain them further so that we can give more detailed tips about why you want to choose this one type of business against the other. They all have their own advantages and disadvantages, and of course there are also other factors that you will have to consider before you decide which of them to embark upon. Business is like a marathon, long race, especially if you want to stay long in the business. So it is better to sit down at the initial stage and do your calculation, not necessarily in terms of money. Do your own work and do it properly, so that you don't just jump into the big ocean that is able to sweep you away. Thank you. Until we come your way next time, don't forget, if you have not subscribed, to subscribe, put on your notification, and share with friends.